And there you have it. The vice president, he wants to be president. And that's what he had to share with us. We'll be getting into some of that as we host a member of the national communications team of the governing New Patriotic Party. But before that, of course, this segment always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, here's what they're offering you. It's still on. Take advantage of it. Remember, your health is your wealth. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening absolutely free. If you're a woman, they're offering you fertility screening gratis. You will pay nothing. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra. They are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronomabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's also Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zima. Their call lines remain 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But now, the start of the news review. We're joined by a member of the national communications team of the governing New Patriotic Party in the person of Gyasi. He is our guest. Kweku has also played a role with 1D1F. He's a former head of communications 1D1F Secretariat and Monitoring and Evaluation Secretariat at the presidency. Kweku, good morning. You would have to unmute.
Good morning, Benji.
Okay, I can hear you now. I hope you're well.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I'm doing very well. Very refreshed. I hope you're also doing well.
I am okay under the circumstances, like I always say. But let's go straight for it. Before we get into the papers, yesterday, many roads led to the University for Professional Studies, Accra, and the other developments that took place. I'd like to find out from you, how convinced were you by the vice president with the plan that he laid out for Ghana should he become president? How convinced were you?
All right. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to your cherished viewers. Benji, I think I am very refreshed this morning, as I've already stated, because of the engagement His Excellency, the Vice President and the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party had yesterday with the entire populace of this country. In fact, I must state that I was highly convinced because the engagement was really anticipated. It is very good that our leaders and those who are seeking to lead us are engaging the public with respect to their views, their aspirations, their vision. And for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, he has a very daunting, challenge as a candidate, because he is certain to identify himself and carve a niche for himself and create a brand and the confidence in the minds of Ghanaians that he can also do it. He is a man of his own, thoughts and ideas. He understands the problems of Ghanaians. He has the solutions to solving these problems. That is why, the entire engagement was, capturing bold solutions to, the future. So it was very refreshing to see him, engaging Ghanaians, giving us plethora of ideas, understanding the problems of Ghanaians and the economic crisis we find ourselves in. So he has that challenge and he has that task to, set himself apart and then create his brand and let Ghanaians understand who he is, understand what he can do, what he brings to the fore. The second challenge that he's seeking to, cross is to break the eight, lead a political party, the New Patriotic Party, to break the eight. And we know that breaking the eight as a political culture in this country is a bit, difficult. You must go extra mile to be able to break the eight. So it was very, very good that His Excellency, the Vice President, engages the Ghanaian, citizenry. And when you look about how he went about his delivery. First, setting the record straight about 4, structures or levels of presentation that he went through. First, to set the record straight, and then highlight the achievement of the current, government under His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, for which he is the Vice President, and also try to, compare, indicators and achievement to achievement, identify himself and set his vision out as also another, level of his presentation, and also do personality contest where he positioned himself side by side with the former President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who is also the opposition leader, and then also trying to let us know his vision. So these 4 structures or levels of presentation went through during his presentation, and that was very refreshing because these are the things that Ghanaians want to hear. It is very important that since the election of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama somewhere last year, May, we've seen that he has also made, significant effort to giving Ghanaians what he wants to bring to the table. So now, as people, we are able to, see through the lines, look at all these, solutions, vision, ideas, and then decide. And it is very, very good that as early as February in the electioneering year, Ghanaians are given these opportunities to look through and then make the right decision, because it is a contest of idea. It is a contest of solutions and then personality. So I am very much convinced of what His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia did yesterday, and he really, really, really touched on the critical issues that face Ghanaians.
Okay. Right. I just wanted to give you ample time to talk about what you felt were the highlights and how convinced you were. I'll tell you bluntly, I wasn't that convinced, but let me explain to you why, and let's go through them one by one. Gyasi Pratt, we all know him, how ardent a supporter he was of the NPP back then, and in the sense of switching over. Remember the days of Kumi Preko, Siemi Preko, Viemi Preko, leading to the Kufuor era. Listening to the Vice President yesterday, it reflected some of what Gyasi Pratt said. It was almost as though the Vice President were throwing the current president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, under the bus, in the sense of, I'm my own person, I was a driver's mate. In previous times, we've heard him say, an assistant headmaster is not the same as a headmaster, and so this and that. I find that a bit problematic, because this is the same Vice President for whom Nana Addo would often say, Bawumia, and he is in charge of the economic management team. The same Dr. Bawumia came up and listed his economic management team, asking us whether anyone remembered the former economic management team from the NDC. He made himself head, primus inter pares. We are running the show. We are doing it. All of a sudden, oh no, I am not my own man. I have not been my own man because I was not president. But when given the opportunity, then I will, be my own man. I find that woefully, largely, almost hysterically problematic. That's the first point. This whole bit about an optional national service, when I heard it yesterday, I cringed. You know why? Some other countries, even in Asia, even in the US, at some point, have had military service, where you serve in the military as a form of discipline, as a form of this or that. Other jurisdictions are trying to bring some of these things back so that people serve, to build patriotism, to build nationalism, to ensure that people feel they become an integral part of their nations. We are now saying that based on X or Y, and to make companies this and that, we want to let it be optional so that people don't do it. I don't know, especially the old dogs, those conservative figures. I am not for it. I don't know how that idea was cooked, but I am absolutely not for it because of what it stands for, what it represents, what it has done for some of us. I taught. I speak Spanish, French, Portuguese. I lectured Spanish for an entire year. And some of those people I taught, there were mainly 4 of them. I was teaching them at some point in the day and at some point in the evening. We've remained friends over a decade, way over a decade, till now. We formed that bond because I taught during my national service. So this whole bit about national service being optional or being scrapped, I do not know. Then he talks about the e-levy. Your administration brought the e-levy. Ghanaians kicked against the e-levy, railed against it. At a point in time, we went to Kumasi, I'll never forget. You wouldn't get 1 out of 10 standing for the e-levy. Media railed against it, CSOs railed against it. This administration used its numbers in parliament to bring us the e-levy. Now the same person under whose watch it was brought, whether he's a mate, driver's mate, or an assistant headmaster, is coming to tell me he will scrap the e-levy. So I ask, on what basis did you bring it up in the first place? If you knew it wasn't good, why did you bring it up? Now we are threatened with 15% VAT on electricity. I know there are new dynamics on that, but that has also come to the fore. Why? When it had been on our books since 2013, no one had implemented it. Then he says that he will cause to be published public contracts for public scrutiny. Let's start with those who declare their assets. Can we scrutinize that, Mr. Vice President, Dr. Vice President? How about we start from there? Look at the Public Accounts Committee and everything that is happening there. The Cecilia Dapas and the rest, if we could scrutinize what they had given initially, that this was what they had, assets, declaration, and even liabilities, because sometimes the devil is in the liabilities, not in the assets. So someone could have a debt of 1 billion Ghana cedis. You don't know it, but they say these are my assets. But they can steal still to pay for their liabilities, and you wouldn't know because you didn't know they were having debt liabilities. All of these are in there. Now you're telling me you're going to do basically what most major companies across the world do. They publish. You can go online and get the records of the Coca-Colas and the rest. So how is this anything that is novel or something that we could do when even declaration of assets? The media has tried time without number to get certain people and what assets they declared, and still we can't get them, even with the right to information. Okay? I could go on and on. My priorities will be different from the president's. I mean, but just tell me, with these core issues that I have outlined, okay, throwing his own president under the bus, this bit about national service, scrapping the e-levy, and publicly publishing contracts for public scrutiny. For me, I'll be blunt with you, and I've said same about some things that the NDC has said. As far as some of these points are concerned, I am not convinced in the least. Your reactions?
All right, Benji, I think your reaction is fairly understandable, but unfortunately, I beg to differ because it does not really, resonate with many of the feelings that we can see among Ghanaians. Because as I already stated, and I reiterate, I was very much convinced, and I know many Ghanaians were very much convinced because, as I stated, His Excellency, the Vice President, set out his speech by giving the records of the government, the achievement of the government, and that is very, very significant. Whereas at 2016, we had about 800,000, enrollment level of SHS students. But with the advent of the free SHS, we have about 1.4 million Ghanaian going students who at the secondary level have access to education on scholarship basis. And that is very, very significant. He also made us to understand that with the general feeling of improving on our roads networks, we inherited, additional road network of about 4,000 kilometers of roads. But by 2022, the current government has been able to, as it is added about 11,674 kilometers of roads to our national, road network. When it comes to inflation, because of the economic crisis that was hit globally by, post-COVID, the Ukraine war, and other, significant.
When are you members of the NPP going to spare us this Ukraine, Russia war and COVID-19? You are not the only one that got hit. Remember when the vice president before 2016 said, "Oh, and this happened, and they jumped from all countries and come and hit Ghana"? Do you remember? Do you remember that?
Yes,
it appears you,
remember.
The politicians, you forget. It didn't hit only Ghana. It hit Togo. I've been in Togo many times last year. It hit Nigeria. I was in Lagos and other places last year. I've toured the sub-region. I've been in different countries. I mean, this didn't hit Ghana differently. I get upset, right? And rightly so, in favor of every Ghanaian. When you keep drumming in, echoing in our ears, COVID-19, you're still charging a COVID-19 levy. The only country, the only one in the entire world, you gave us what you called electricity for free, which was for a specific bracket. I didn't get that. You gave water for free to a specific bracket. You've taxed us beyond whatever. Now you're even thinking of, look at the increments, PURC increments over time. Talking of now this proposed 15% VAT. You've borrowed more than any administration, all administrations put together in this Fourth Republic, even dating to independence. And you want to tell me about COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war. Which brings me to that other point when he says he's giving us a plethora, you said he was giving us a plethora of ideas and talking about the economic conditions we find ourselves in. He was talking about that. Who created that economic condition?
So I will touch on that. But you see, Benji, that is a fact. You see, yes, it is very unpalatable fact that sometimes you have to mention some of these, events that have really affected the economy. But you cited Nigeria. Nigeria's government is bent on removing the fuel subsidy because of post-COVID crisis. So almost every country is hit, and we cannot run away from that reality. That being said, as I stated, it is this government that has been able to, by the beginning of this year, increase public salary to 23%. You see, and that is very, very significant. This government has now also put measures down to see the agricultural sector, improving, and now it's expected to grow by 3.5%. And it is doing very well among the sub-region in Africa here, seeing the agricultural sector growing now. Some have been growing in negatives over the period, but Ghana's agricultural sector is, improving. And that is very, very important to highlight. Now, you talked about the national service, and I believe it is a very important, area of his speech that, as you've rightly highlighted, we need to look at it. Yes, when you currently read the provisions or the statutory provisions that establish the national service, it is a mandatory, service that every individual who moves on from the tertiary institution is expected to contribute his or her quota to national development before he or she is enrolled in, permanent job, environment. And it is right because the framers of the provisions thought that, and as it has been done globally everywhere, our youth and then the next generation should go through certain kind of training, whether vocational, whether service, whether, technical, so that they can be ripe for any engagement whatsoever, professionally or by career-wise. So that is very, very important. And if we should make it mandatory, then that vision is always likely to be met. But you see, the problem as we face as individuals, as a country now, is that the rate of unemployment among the, tertiary students when they graduate is becoming very alarming. It has been on the front burner over the years. So we expect leaders, as it stands now, to think outside the box and then prefer solutions that are realistic, solutions that are sustainable. Now, what is happening in our job environment is that there are so many institutions, there are so many employers who, because every year they receive national service personnel, jobs that are meant for permanent and professional workers to be done are always relegated or devoted for national service personnel, because at the end of the day, they will get people that they will train for 2 months, and afterwards they will engage them for another 8 months, and then they will go, and then they will come and they will pay them 700 Ghana cedis, and then they will, they will cut down expenditure and all that. So there is always that gap, and I think this practice has led to we having this huge backlog of unemployed, graduate students. So it was very important that we see our leaders coming out with, out of the box solutions that we all can relate and think they are sustainable. It is mind-boggling that we may have an institution which may request for over 107 national service personnel to do what? When you go to our private universities, when you go to the public sector institutions, the ministries, the minimum that they can take is about 50 NSS personnel every year. And the question is that what work are they doing that we cannot give them decent and sustainable jobs so that we can reduce unemployment? So for the vice president to say that no, let's wait and look at this whole national service scheme and see how best we can make it a bit liberal, make it a bit innovative, so that when graduates are getting ready for the job market, they are not restricted in their thinking and in their can-do spirit that they have to do national service for a whole year before they can even be ready for the job market. We have so many examples of young, graduates who, even before they left the universities, they had their own ideas. They had beautiful entrepreneurial skills that they wanted to veer into businesses outright. But because of this mandatory, national service, all these people are to join the fray or the queue. And then when they are now ready for the job market, they might have lost their ideas. They must have lost their, momentum. They must have even lost some of the opportunities that were available before they, entered the job market. So, yes, it is still an early day, kind of discussion. And as the vice president stated, some of these policies will be streamlined into a proper manifesto. But on the face of what has been said to us from yesterday, I think the whole concept of the national service idea, making it liberal, so that those who are very innovative, those who are very entrepreneurial, those who think they can enter into the job market can be readily available. They can do that right after finishing school. And you see, the positive side of this whole policy, Benji, is the fact that when you look at our academic, structure and practices, when you are at the tertiary level, you are allowed to do internship. There are several of our students who every single vacation, they go and do this internship, programs. Now, what it means is that by the time that they finish their 4-year studies in the university, they might have acquired, quite appreciable level of job experience. So if the national service is to actually train many of the graduates to get first-hand information and first-hand experience in, for the job market, then through the internship program, most of them might have acquired that. So why then do you also subject them to another 1 year of, as it is, not, a motivating job, conditions? So we should be able to, allow some of these people who think they are ready to go into the job market. Now, then again, this will also give us, the president, the vice president stated, this will also give the opportunity for the employers to go to the various campuses, as it was done in the olden days, to poach and to select those that they think have the requisite, skills and knowledge to come and do their work for them, have decent job, opportunities. I think this is a very fantastic idea. It's quite a departure from, the convention, but it is rightly so. And that is one thing that made me very much convinced about the president, His Excellency, the Vice President's speech yesterday.
Okay.
That he wanted to depart from the status quo and set his own narratives so that we can solve problems that face us as people.
All right.
But I thought let's touch on the...
We don't have all the time, unfortunately. So if you're going to conclude on that, I've actually given you a lot of time to explain this. We have to get into the papers. So let me not truncate. Go ahead, wrap, and then we'll get into the papers. With the point you were making.
With the e-levy, I think we have it on record that His Excellency, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, granted several media engagement and stated emphatically, especially at the beginning of the conversation about this whole e-levy, policy. And he stated clearly that he was not in support of that. And we have records to show. Fast forward, the government decided to do that. Now, so there's a conflict between the position of the Vice President and then the government, especially vis-a-vis the President and then the Finance Minister. It is important, and that brings for the discussion of he as the head of economic management team. Please, Benji, I believe you all could appreciate the fact that yes, economic management team, and with the number and caliber of persons who were occupying various roles within that team, one could have ordinarily expected that much will be done by the economic management team. And I am confident that, yes, if we should allow the economic management team to outline what they have done so far, they have contributed significantly, but the management team is an advisory body to the cabinet. You see, so there is a point where you can advise, you can share your thoughts, but the executive looking at the economic conditions and then what ought to be done at the cabinet level will take decisions, whether contrary to the advice or in furtherance to the advice of the economic management team. But that is why he's availing himself that now I want to be the driver, give me the opportunity, now let me drive, and then let me give you my vision, and then let me solve the problems for us. And I think it is a fair position that the Vice President has taken.
All right. Thank you so much for the thoughts that you've espoused. I'll quickly get into the papers, and we had to dwell a lot on this because most of the papers are talking about some of the very matters I've spoken of. Some messages coming through, and I just like some of you to know, especially knowing where some of you are coming from, that when you send in messages insulting me, my skin, it's like a hippo and elephant skin put together. You can insult me day and night. I really don't. Water off a duck's back. That's the way it is for me. Salim Baba, you say, Benjamin thought he was making sense. I'll read all of them. Don't worry. Benjamin thought he was making sense in his review of Dr. Bawumia's speech. Anyway, Obiane na adwene, Salim Baba, just as Wonsone wa adwene. So keep it up. Amevo Ferguson says, Mr. Akakpo Benjamin, I'm just happy for your speaking for us, the Ghanaians, and not letting, I don't want to use what you said, but Kweku, play with your intelligence. That's what you say. Wumbe Abdullahi says, the Vice President is not a thinker, and these explanations you are giving cannot solve the unemployment issues in Ghana. I can't read the rest of what you say because I feel then it crosses and gets into insults, so I'll not read the rest. Kobe Man says, I'm sad listening to Mr. Gyasi. Ghana is doomed if these people are still hovering around the corridors of the presidency. Charles, watching you live from Germany. Williams Donko says, Bawumia is not telling us that he is still a something, I can't read it, in NPP's government. That is why he is, I can't read the rest of your message, but you are pointing to the driver's mate scenario. Kweku Gyasi, your views are not adding up on this national service issue. Kofi Asempa Otabil sends in that one. And he says, my ward vacated in November 2023 and reopening March 2024. You even pay more than ever. This one says, his vision is far better than the gloomy 24-hour economy. The next one says, so the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana said nothing about NAPCO. Some say he has nothing good to offer. This one asks, Kweku, you and who are convinced? This one says, cheap journalism. Was he the one who introduced the e-levy? Be serious for once, please. Wilberforce, Kwejo Abuaje sends in that one. I told you, good or bad, I'll read your comments. Wilberforce, I have a question for you. I'm sure you've practiced journalism. That's why you can see this one is cheap. Maybe you practice the expensive type. Who passed the e-levy? Whose government? Are you trying to extricate Dr. Bawumia from the e-levy? Different strokes for different folks. Anyway, those are some of the comments that have come through. I'll just take apart a few things, other things in different papers, but the thrust of it is Dr. Bawumia and what he said yesterday. And then I'll wrap with you, Kweku, on 2 points I have for you before you go. The Daily Graphic, government withdraws VAT on electricity. Of course, it's still under consideration for negotiations with Labour. Then Minister tasks Central Region MMDCs to ensure peaceful elections. Book on Otumfuo's Adjuman Prempeh II launched. Then there's 2024 elections. Reinstate indelible ink in electoral process. Parliament's leadership urges the EC. When you go in that paper on the international front, 2 things for consideration. ECOWAS asks Senegal to reverse presidential election delay. I've spoken about this matter time without number, especially this week. ECOWAS will sit down, and allow constitutional coup d'etats to happen. Then, when something else happens, and I've said time without number, Kweku, I've seen war. I don't like it. I don't want any such things. But when you sit down and allow these things to happen, and then etija and I say jita, then you come round trying to talk about, and they shouldn't go that way. But what do you do when Alassane Ouattara bent the constitution for a 3rd term? What did you do in other instances? So those are the problems. Then Hamas proposes 135-day Gaza truce with complete Israeli withdrawal. You can check out the details on pages 5 and 9 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. The New Finder, Bawumia unveils vision, government suspends 15% VAT on electricity. GFA submits proposal to government to revive football. That's Kurt Okreku pictured there. The Ghanaian Times Daily Guide all reflect the same things we've done in respect of Dr. Bawumia. So I'm going to leave you with this as we get ready to go. Kweku. 3 issues I want you to digest in 2 minutes maximum. 1, I didn't hear much, especially when the same administration and Ken Ofori-Atta had talked about how much we lose every year to corruption, between 4 and 6 billion. How to tackle corruption, especially on the back of the latest Corruption Perception Index. 2, the economy, apart from digitalization and everything, the thrust of how we can get our economy to be buoyant again and employ people. And 3, maybe just something out of the Daily Graphic. 2024 elections, reinstate indelible ink in electoral process. Parliament's leadership urges the EC. I've spoken to a lot of people in the political space, a lot of academics among others. I don't get why we want to tinker with this in an election as crucial as this one. Indelible ink has been with us since the inception of the Fourth Republic. If you have superior means, why don't you use them in conjunction, not separately, in conjunction with using indelible ink? 3 points for you, quick thoughts, and we're gone.
All right. Thank you very much, Benji. I am very happy you've brought the issue of corruption and how His Excellency, the Vice President and the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, is seeking to tackle corruption. Issues and discussions about corruption is always a heartbeat for Ghanaians because that is one of the best ways we can reserve money, generate money, and then solve our socioeconomic problems. So it is always refreshing to hear leaders or people who are seeking to lead coming out with, practical solutions or measures in tackling corruption. Now, truth be told, Benji, the best way to really tackle corruption, which we have typical models of examples in the Western world, to bringing down corruption or eradicating it, practically, is going the digitalization way. Now, if you're able to minimize in any government or public sector or any dealing whatsoever, minimize human contact and automate processes, then you are likely to succeed in limiting or eradicating.
Kweku, because we are pressed for time. Pardon me, because we are pressed for time. Digitization and digitalization, I do get it. DVLA, passport office, and all of that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. How about dealing with corruption as far as politicians themselves and technocrats are concerned? I think that's where Ghanaians are more focused on, not about ensuring that DVLA, there are no Goro boys or stuff. Politicians themselves. Look, let me tell you, recently, in recent times, we have heard of, and believe you me, if you want evidence, I can give you, people who were in the NPP's parliamentary primaries recently have shared with us how they spent millions of CDs and this and that. I'll never mention any name, okay? But you ask yourself, when you look at the trajectory of these people, how did they get those kinds of money? That's what we're talking about. Spare us the DVLA and digitization. Those ones we know. Politicians and technocrats, that's where we're dealing with. Corruption in those circles and contracts and all of that. That's what we want to hear. Go ahead, Kweku.
Okay, so Benji, yes, I think it is right to place the effort of fighting corruption at the doorsteps of the political leaders. But Benji, it is also important that our public sector is also infested with so many corrupt practices. Corruption is a national problem. At any level of our economic engagement, at any level of our society, there is an iota of corrupt practice. So yes, we will try and situate it within the political context. But if you want to really have a holistic discussion about corruption, then we should be able to look at the wider picture. That is what I can say. But yes, I remember that the act is almost being passed. It is now before Parliament has adopted the Public Service Workers, declaration, where they are expected to declare. Before then, we have in existence, a law that enshrines or what is the name, enforces the public sector's political appointees, especially ministers, to declare their assets. We should be able to impress on every appointee to declare. The case of Cecilia Dapa brings to light a declaration of assets and what you've been able to make when given the opportunity as a minister, and then the sources of your funds and your riches.
Okay, all right. I think our time has been exhausted. I'm being prompted, so I'll give you 20 seconds, bro. Just wrap quickly, and then we can go.
Okay, so Benji, as I stated earlier, public service, the Public Accounts Committee is doing very, very well with respect to scrutinizing public service workers and their institutions as to how best they can do what is right, not, breeding corruption. We've seen the committee asking the law enforcement agencies to take, public service workers on. And that is one thing that must be commended. It is very, very good. Then again, I repeat that digitalization is the best way to solving the problems of corruption, fighting corruption head on. And then once we are able to entrust the leadership into the hands of His Excellency, the Vice President, with his prowess in digitalization, will be able to, remove human factor for most of our public engagement and thereby reduce corrupt practices in our public sector.
Thank you, Kweku. God knows, Charles says. So are they confirming to us that the EMT and Bawumia advised the government and the government didn't listen? Even if that were the case, the same team or people that didn't listen to his advice are the same people cheering him in the auditorium. The value will be the same. And impress upon people to declare assets, you said, Kweku. We're not going to banter on this, but I was just wondering, is that not the law? Are we now going to impress on people to declare assets? Anyway, that's how we cap off. No responses. We may have that later. That's how we cap off the news review this morning. Lest I forget, let me quickly do this. Very affable gentleman, wonderful. He's a member of our data research team. I'm talking about Anthony Menu. Time without number, a few times here and there. He's sorted me out, made sure that I could get my blunt thoughts, among others, on the screen. Anthony Menu, you are one wonderful person. Happy birthday to you. I celebrate you. The team celebrates you. Anthony Menu, happy birthday to you. Right before we get into sports and talk about Nigeria beating South Africa on penalties and the Ivorians as well, going past the DR Congo team. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment every weekday. They are offering you today and always, at least as far as time will allow, they are offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. You can reach them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronumabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakrade Energy State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Siamanzima. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And to all of you who shared your messages to say this morning, a lot of you watching online, we're grateful. Sports up next.